Hi guys, I'm Ayushi, your mentor for law entrance exams, and welcome to Law Digest. And also welcome to the success story series. Today I have with me Devashi Jain, who is already, she has joined OP Jindal because DU exam itna late hua. So she joined there. In the DU examination, she has scored 313 with 42 rank. So today we are going to talk to her. She also prepared for the AnilSAT examination and she has some great insights as to these examinations, which I would also want कि आप लोगों को भी उनसे पता लगे कि कैसे उन्होंने prepare किया. Let us invite Devashi here and let us listen to her story and what has been her journey in this preparation. Also, there have been difficulties for her to decide whether she should go for OP Jindal or DU. And finally, she's made the choice. She's going for DU. Let's hear out from Devashi. Hi, Devashi. Welcome to the channel.
Hello, ma'am. Thank you so much for everything.
Yeah. So first of all, I've just given a small background about you, but then obviously I'd like to, our viewers also would like to know from you, what's your background? Tell us something about yourself.
Okay, so I did my schooling from Delhi Public School, Indirapura, and in 11th and 12th, I opted for commerce with maths. After that, I did sit for CLAT in 2019, but I couldn't clear it. So after that, I chose for DU, and from Daulat Ram College, I pursued English honors. And while I was preparing for English, like while I was pursuing English honors, towards the last semester, I sat for AnilSAT and then DU exam.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's for the background.
All right. So Devashi, what made you choose law as a career option?
So honestly, there was not one point that led me to choose law as a career option. It was more of an elimination basis that started it, that I did not want to do science. And then I guess it was my mother who suggested me that you should opt for law because I always had a predilection for social sciences, and law was a very good combination with that. So while after I chose law, actually, then my interest in law developed, and then I knew that okay, it's going to be a good choice for me, and then I started reading on it and everything that came after it.
Okay. So let's understand that how did you prepare for this examination? What was your strategy? Do share your insights on that with us.
Okay, so I remember that towards the second year, I thought of taking the exam because I wanted to do law only. And the first video I watched was yours on the topic of how to prepare for DU exam. And the first thing which really stuck with me was you don't need to jump blindly into the preparation. First, you need to know what you need to prepare, how you need to prepare for it. Because once you jump blindly into it, that some people are saying, go for Lakshmikant or go for this book or that book, you're just going to be very directionless. And the one thing that you need to really understand is for competitive exams, your preparation needs to be very precise and to the point. You don't need to know a lot of other things other than that. So my first point was to know what I needed to do for this exam. And the only reliable source I would say is previous year papers. To everyone watching this video, heavily rely on the previous year question papers for at least for DU. Because even if the exam pattern changes, the questions are still very much relatable. They're not going to be something very drastic. So the first thing that comes for the DU exam, I guess, is constitution. There is no escape to this. You need to be very, very thorough with your constitution. So for me personally, I read the constitution from the BEAR Act itself. I downloaded it in my laptop and I used to highlight and make points in the laptop itself. So, and of course, you can do it in your notebook and other things also. But for me, this method worked. And the thing with BEAR Act is, obviously, the first time you read it, the language is going to be very coarse. It's not going to be something you understand at the first sight. So supplement it with a YouTube video, or if you're taking a coaching with your teachers, so that you understand what it's going to say and you read it a lot of times so that that language retains. Because I remember before my exam, I went through the Constitution bare at, I guess twice or thrice. And in the exam, I could just see and I could just choose the answer, because usually that language is what comes up with the exam.
Hmm.
And that is what becomes very scary for students, because
Hmm.
that language, they escape from it
That's very new
beforehand.
too.
And then when it appears in the exam, it's like, what should I do now? So
Hmm.
fear, like, face that fear first, and
Hmm.
I would suggest, and go for the bare act, and just start with the very basic steps. And you do not need to know the entire bare act. No, you
Hmm.
need to know very limited sections. You need to know all, like, the first thing is preamble. You need to be very thorough with the preamble
Hmm.
of all the possible questions that could come out of the
Hmm.
preamble, and then go with it, like the parts, schedules, articles, and
Hmm.
stuff. And the second part to constitution is questions.
Hmm.
You can refer to books like Universal. There
Hmm.
are around 500 questions of Constitution in Universal. I did
Hmm.
them twice because they are very, very effective, even to get a good conceptual clarity of Constitution as a subject. And then AP Bharatwaj has also a lot of very good questions.
Hmm.
They might seem very in depth at first, but
Hmm.
that's what stimulates your knowledge. That in the paper, you don't spend a lot of time thinking.
Hmm.
So go with that, I would say. And then obviously previous year question papers. And while doing previous year question papers, make it a point that you're not just randomly solving some random questions at this time, which I'm going to do 50 questions of this paper or 50 questions of that paper. No. Sit, write down those numbers. Like if I'm going to do a DU LLB 2017 question paper, from where the 100 questions paper started, write numerically 1 to 100, solve the entire paper, and
Hmm.
then correct it with yourself, like, okay,
Hmm.
this question I got right or this question I got wrong. Even score yourself so that you know where your accuracy is lying. Even everyone's accuracy starts with 50 or 40, 50, 60%.
Hmm.
That's the range where you start. But then that's where you build yourself up. So give yourself that time and start with it. And then after that, you can just revise those questions.
Hmm.
And if you do it more than once, honestly, those questions are going to be literally stuck in your mind. You know them, that you can just see the question and you know the answer to it.
Hmm.
So actually that actually makes the paper very easy for
Hmm.
to attempt, honestly.
Hmm.
So that's it for the constitution, I would say. So yeah, be very thorough with constitution. You cannot escape it. It's a major chunk of the paper.
Hmm.
And then for contracts, I would say that you don't need to know a lot of it. You just need to know the most important points.
Hmm.
Like you need to know all the definitions of it, all the definition section. You need to know how an acceptance is revoked or accepted,
Hmm.
how an offer is made, contingent and wagering contracts. What is a contract? What is a promise? These basic stuff you need to know.
Hmm.
And obviously, you need to supplement it with questions, because the questions of contracts, I would say, are on the trickier side, because contracts is not something it comes naturally to you.
Hmm.
You need to know some basics of it before going through it. So that is that. And I remember in this, even in this year's question paper, the question came that if a parrot comes up with an offer, would that offer be construed as an offer?
Hmm.
And at that time, the only thing that came to my mind was the definition of an offer, which says that when a person expresses his willingness to the
Hmm.
other person.
Hmm.
And I could just decipher that this person is not expressing his own willingness, but the pet is doing it, or the parrot is doing it for him. So it's not going to be an offer. So if you're very thorough with the basics and you know that in your mind while you're attempting the questions, it gets very easy, at least to eliminate the answers. And while attempting any competitive exam, please take this in your mind. You do not need to know the exact answers. Even if you can eliminate the options,
Hmm.
you are much ahead. You are much
Hmm.
ahead, because you cannot know the answer to every question. That's not the mentality you should take with a
Hmm.
competitive exam. It's not a CBS exam that you need to attempt all the questions. No,
Hmm.
because here there are negative marking, and there are questions which actually the examiner wants you to leave.
Hmm.
So you need to understand what questions are aligning with my strengths and are not aligning, and what questions I need to leave. I also left around 10 questions this year because I did not know them, and I could not even um, infer what should I choose. So I just left them. And it's okay. You can leave questions. It's not going to be a very big tussle in that. So yeah, for contracts, I would say that go through some YouTube videos, I guess, understand the basics, solve some questions, and I guess you're done with it. Obviously, supplemented with some previous questions so that you can know what is a major part and what questions are repeatedly coming in the exam, so that it is easier for you to go through them. And in contracts, I guess, yeah, that sums up for contracts. Then I guess in the legal section, we come with the family law. So for family law, what usually I have noticed in the previous year papers is people usually go very thoroughly done with the Hindu Marriage Act and the Hindu laws, but what they don't really go with is family law, and the questions actually come from the Muslim law. So in the Muslim law, you don't need to read the Bare Act. You do not need to know these little integrities and anything of the act. You just need to know what the Muslim Marriage Act states, like a marriage is a sacrament in a Hindu Marriage Act, but it is a contract. It is a civil contract in a Muslim Marriage Act. So these basics you need to know. Like this year, the question came with that which of the following is not a secondary source of Muslim law. So even if you know the primary sources of Muslim law, you can still eliminate the options as, okay, this is a primary source, like Kia was the answer. So Kia was a primary source, so it's not going to be a secondary source. So I just remembered the primary sources, and from that I could decipher, okay, the answer is going to be Kia because it's a primary source, not a secondary source. So that's what I'm saying. Keep your preparation very to the point and be very, very thorough with the basics. Don't try to do everything at once, because if you do everything at once, you're not going to retain much of it. And then at the end, even if you know a lot of things, you don't know what to actually attempt in the paper. So for family law, keep your preparation very precise. Be very thorough with Hindu laws and marriage, Muslim laws, the marriage and divorces. Know some basic knowledge. And in that, I guess there's a lot of guidance available on YouTube, I would say. You can refer to ma'am's channel. There are other channels also. And while coming to the channels part, please be very specific to what channels you are referring. Because there are so plethora of options on YouTube and Telegram. So my first suggestion would be we stay away from Telegram as much as you can. And even if you're following some channels, those channels should be very credited, that they give to the point information to you, and the questions are very to the point. And for the YouTube also, it's not that you're randomly wasting your time, because it gets very easy to waste your time on YouTube or Telegram when you are accessing through that. So yeah, for family law, keep your basics very much thorough and solve some previous questions only. Even if you're very thorough with the previous questions, I guess it would suffice. You don't need to solve all the questions of family law. That's not what is required from the exam. And then we come to torts. So torts, it's not the kind of subject you actually study, because it's a very theoretical and it's a very broad subject if you come to law as a subject. So for torts, you need to know the basics, like tort comes from the word tortum, and some very basic legal maxims which come with it, like damnum sine injuria, injuria sine damnum. And the legal maxims and the torts are somewhat interlinked, because there are so many Latin words which comes with torts. So while preparing for torts, you can also go with it's 2-in-1. So even your torts is done and your legal maxims, the majority part is done. So yeah, if you get done with your legal maxims very well, majority of your torts, I guess, is done. And this time, I guess the torts questions were a little twisted. They were not what a basic, like a person with basic knowledge of torts would know. Like there were questions on Salmon's theory and stuff. And I don't know, I never read them in any competitive exams, for any competitive exam, because this is something you learn much later. But since the standard has been risen this year, because I guess DU is more focused on knowledge now. So I guess you also as uh, uh, take as exam takers, you also need to raise your standard now and
Mm.
go a little deeper into thoughts. So stick to guided books, stick to previous questions, don't leave them. And with that, I guess supplement some other questions also. That's you can do if you find an area a little tricky. So yeah, but do not escape previous questions papers. They are the core for this exam. Everyone says this, and it is very, very important. And
Mm.
while preparing, just don't restrict yourself to due previous question papers. You can
Mm.
also explore PU like Punjab University,
Mm.
MSCET, BHU questions are on a little difficult side, but they actually help you a lot if you
Mm.
see it from the bigger perspective, because then you are more privy to other questions which other students are not solving, but you are. So your concepts are much more clear. It gives you much clarity, which actually helps a lot in the exam. So yeah, that's it, I guess, for the legal perspective. Yeah, and um, cases. There was a chunk of the paper which was just previous cases, like, these cases were not even old judgments. These cases were very recent judgments. So I have also seen this shift in the DU exam, that usually they are in, I guess, from 1617 to 1617, they used to ask these old judgments like case for Nanda Bharati,
Mm.
Golaknath, and stuff. But now they've shifted. They're more towards the contemporary legal reforms that are
Yeah, that
coming,
is why
like
that
by
that
Nafis.
actually made us introduce this legal current affairs module, that there are a lot
Exactly.
of recent cases that are being asked.
Yeah, because there has been a shift. They're not going to ask these old judgments now. They want, because if you know this contemporary legal transformations, it also shows that you are aware of the legal current affairs, as ma'am said. And you need to know how the country is evolving, especially in the judiciary and then the legal aspect. So those cases are very, very important. So all the recent cases which come within a year or two, you, at least the important ones, you should know, like the RIT Foundation case. It's a landmark judgment.
Mm.
Even if the Supreme Court judgment has not come, you should know about it. Or Shreya Singhal case, it's still 2015, 16. So till 2015, all the landmark judgments, make a list of them, be thorough with them, because these are the kind of questions that can still be expected.
Mm.
So yeah, for previous question papers, but still that does not absolve you from the liability of not doing the old judgments. You still need to know them, from because from there, I guess the base starts,
Mm.
and then you can build it on the legal current affairs and the
Yeah.
current cases. So for DU, I would say there are people who crack the exam with 2 months preparation, even, or with even a month's preparation. But for me, I knew that I could not do it because I need my own time.
Mm.
So you don't need to compare yourself to other people. If
Mm.
someone is saying that that person cracked it in a month, and you know that you cannot, it's okay. Take your time.
Mm.
You have a lot of time for you, even if you start preparing now. And it's not that you need to study 12 hours a
Also,
day.
also now that the
Yeah,
pattern has changed and all the syllabus is not out yet, they're saying it is on the SWIT pattern, SWIT PG pattern,
yeah,
and we are expecting that they will not rule out legal because they are taking time to create their own syllabus. They're not opting for the general
yeah,
paper. So I guess English, maths, reasoning also becomes very important, which for till now we guys, even I used to tell you guys that, maths probably you can do towards the end. Not many
yeah,
questions are asked, but now that has become
yeah,
important. So let
yeah.
us address this thing as well, that how did you prepare for these areas in short, and also um we'll simultaneously talk about your NLSAT preparation as well.
Yeah. Okay, so for logic reasoning, I did not do much, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. I did not solve any extra questions other than the previous questions,
Hmm.
because logic reasoning is something that comes from within, I guess. So if your concepts are a little clear and you know little basics of date, calendar, directions, you can easily do these questions, at least until due was just a DU exam, not under CUET. I don't know what's gonna be the standard now, but till now the standard of logical reasoning for me was on the easier side. So that's why I knew my strength in that area, and I just stick to the previous questions. And in English, I guess English as a language is not something that comes overnight. So you need to know. For me, I knew that I could handle basic English. So that's why I also did not give much time to English. It was not that I was dedicating an allotted time to English. It was something that while solving those previous questions, some random words would come up, and I would not know the meaning of it. So I would just write somewhere that okay, this word's meaning is this, and that would somehow eventually help in my vocabulary also, and in the exams also. But still, I would say that if you find English is not your key area, don't worry. You can still score a good amount of number, but you just need to know that what kind of questions to attempt and what kind of questions to leave for English. So if you think that your vocabulary is not very good, start reading, maybe start finding some words, and at the end of the week, maybe just revise those words. Okay, this word means that, and use it in your daily conversations. I know everyone says this, and it's very difficult to do in real life, but if you want to work on your weak areas, you need to put in a little effort. That's the point. So yeah, and for maths, I did not do any maths. I did not, because there's no point, because there are no questions. Even this year, I guess there was not even a single question of math. There was just one or two. I don't even remember. Yeah. So even if, and there are very basic questions like multiplication, addition, or some very basic questions. You don't need to know a lot of it. So, and I had maths till 11th and 12th. Not that it helped, but yeah, you get some sort of encouragement that I can at least do this much. So for maths also, I did not spend a lot of time. Then comes the major part, which is GK. So this year's benefit for me was that there were only 3 to 4 major questions of general knowledge and current affairs that came, because GK is not my cup of tea. That is why I guess I found AnilSAT very difficult, because in AnilSAT the paper was heavily on GK. But
by
in
GK
DU,
you mean current
surprisingly,
affairs?
by GK I mean current affairs, and there were some very, I guess, unexpected static GK questions that came in DU exam. There were some questions about Dandi March, Mahatma Gandhi, some lifeline and stuff. So yeah, so no one really prepares these questions, because static GK is not something expected, or the probability ratio is very low for static GK. But I guess that's where your common and general knowledge comes up, because while I was attempting those questions, my 10th history book was on my mind. I could just relate, I have read this somewhere, I've read this somewhere. I don't know how many answers I got right or wrong. I did not check, but I got decent enough, because some questions, that a Chandanti March is something that's gonna come before this or after that. So even if some basics are done, it's okay. And yeah, actually the thing is, now the DU exam pattern is going to entirely change this from next year. So there's no, I would say, point discussing whether GK is going to come or not, because they're going to eventually let us know that if it's going to come or not. But still, you should have some knowledge of, I would say, modern history, if not even ancient or middle history. Modern history, you should have some knowledge. Okay, what really happened? So if you have this much amount of knowledge, it's going to help.
Okay.
I'm not going to say that it's going to be very beneficial or anything like that, but if some random questions come up, you can at least attempt them or eliminate some options out of it. So yeah. And for current affairs, I would say, as ma'am says in every video, take guidance from these YouTube videos, but know at your heart that they are not sufficient. So you need to relate to other sources also. You need to refer other sources, and those other sources can be anything. I would not really suggest newspapers if you are preparing just for 2 months or 3 months. But if it's a long preparation and you have developed a habit of reading newspaper, that's the best thing that can happen, and it's really beneficial. But other than that, there are some concise documents which are available for free. Also, there are some modules also which you can purchase. So that's on you, on how you want to go about it. But for GK, I would say that just don't stick to the learning part, but also explore the practicing part, where you practice those questions, where you apply that knowledge of whatever you have attained, those current affairs. And the one point I would like to say for current affairs is, do not stick to them month wise. Take them topic wise. That okay, this is the list of all the awards that are there. You cannot miss Nobel Prize if you're going for DU, because DU is obsessed with Nobel Prize and it's gonna ask for Nobel Prize questions every time. Even this year there was just one question, I guess, but there was a question for Nobel Prize. The rankings, different international, national ranking, like Global Hunger Index and stuff. You need to know these rankings at least. And for sports also, I guess, even if you don't know a lot of things, but the national or the international level games that happen, just have some random or just some relevant information, that even if the question comes up, you are not awestruck that what kind of question is this? I can't even attempt it. So the idea for, I guess, a competitive exam is to prepare yourself for every possible question, that even if that question comes up, and even if you're leaving that question, it's not that you're awestruck that what kind of question is this? I can't even attempt it. You know it somehow, and then you make a choice of attempting it or not by calculating the probability of you getting it right or wrong. So before taking any competitive exam, before jumping into any preparation, understand how to take a competitive exam, how to prepare for it. Because again, these are not your CBSE questions. So while on that topic, I guess refer to a lot of channels, but I guess the best thing that I found was Ma'am's channel, Lord Digest, and I have been referring to this channel from like 2019. And the best thing I find about this channel is it gives you a very holistic approach. It's not just stick to only DU exam preparation. It gives you a lot of other exams ideas and how to prepare for them, first of all. Then there is the best thing that I find about this channel is there is a proper categorization of everything. Like even if there's a special category of previous year questions, even in that category, there are different categorizations that from those previous year questions, these are the questions from constitution, contracts, or torts, or GK, or anything like that. So that you don't need to even put in that amount of effort. It's just everything is available, and you can just watch those videos and get a sense of how those previous year questions are going to be asked. And while you're watching those videos, ma'am also explains how to attempt that, or how you need to work if you're not getting the answer to it. So it's also a very good learning process. So you can do it, I guess, in your free time, so that
Yeah.
even if you're not doing anything, there's something that's going to be retained in your mind. And for current affairs, I guess ma'am's channel is a very good source. Stick to that for it, but no, at the end, just know that these things are for your guidance. These channels are for your guidance. At the end, what's going to stand is your preparation. Ma'am is here to guide me, or to let me know that what should I not do or what should I do, but what should I do should be done by me at the end of the day. So that's the point. So don't waste your time, because it gets very easy to waste your time doing random searches. Stick to a good YouTube channel. I would refer to ma'am's channel any day.
Thanks.
And make good use of it, very good use of it, because it's a very resourceful channel. If you're preparing for an exam like DU, and even if you have not done a lot, you can just refer to those videos, and I guess majority of your preparation will be done. After that, you just need to be very thorough of whatever you have done till now. So yeah.
Okay, Devashi, that was great, and thank you for your valuable comments on the channel. Let's talk about your AnilSAT preparation also.
Okay, so for AnilSAT, I guess it was a very exciting opportunity. So I was very excited to take the exam. So there are basically part A and part B in which you have to give the exam, and it's, I guess, like 2.5 hour paper. So for AnilSAT, what's the first thing you need to know is how to strategize the paper, because it's in that part we also have to write an essay. So for that, I guess you need to have a very good time management, and that comes from practice. And that is why I purchased mocks from my ma'am's channel, and those mocks really did help me. But I guess what lagged in my preparation was the correct amount of GK, which should have been done, because I could not anticipate the level of GK which the examination would ask. So you need to know this point, that your part B, no matter how good your part B is, because answer writing, I don't know if it comes from the course I pursued or what, but answer writing is still an easier part for me. So I did not put in a lot of effort in part B, but you need to know that your part B is going to be checked only if you qualify for part A. So, and that part is your passages where you get all the questions like English, logic, reasoning, legal reasoning, and obviously your GK questions. So be very thorough with it. And now the exam has been held. There are so many sample questions. Like when we did take the exam, it was going to be held for the first time. So no one really know what to expect from the paper. That was something very tricky. But now that the exam has been held, there is so much guidance available. Go for it, solve this question paper, and work on your GK. I would suggest. The one mistake I did was that I referred to a lot of IAS material GK, which is good if you want to get a good knowledge of the topics. But at the end, you need to know that that knowledge is going to be to very concise amount of topics. And for an exam like AnilSAT, you need to have variety of knowledge. So you need to know about different other things which are of prime importance. So as you're preparing for DU, prepare for AnilSAT GK, maybe go in a little deep. Other than that, it's almost the same. So you need to have a very guided and a very dedicated preparation for GK. And yeah, I guess that's actually how you
Right.
can
GK is important.
solve it in a much better way. Yeah.
Okay.
GK is very important for AnilSAT.
Yeah. So Devashi, you had such great insights on this examination, and so much, so many points you told us about how to go about it and everything. Finally, what's your final take, and what would you like to share with students as to the final advice that you would want to give with their preparation?
So for DU, I would suggest start solving previous question papers as soon as you can. Maintain a good record of those previous year question papers and take them very seriously. Now, I don't know if the pattern is going to change, so what they're going to release, but still, I would say that previous year question papers are still going to be very relevant, because uh, it gives you a good exposure to the questions. Then go for a lot of mocks, solve a lot of mocks, as much mocks as you can. Don't think that how much I'm scoring, because you can improve. You can always improve. Don't, because, and these are not your final result. You need to understand this. So while you're attempting mocks, make the point of doing it for the purpose of you learning out of it. It's not, these marks are not going to matter. So, and it's a human only to be disappointed if you don't score well. But if you are not scoring well consistently, then understand why you're not scoring well consistently. And if you're scoring mediocre, stick to that and work a lot on what kind of questions you're getting wrong. So after taking a mock, if you're not analyzing your questions, that's actually a mock wasted. So if you're taking a 2-hour mock, spend at least an hour analyzing it, that, okay, I got this question right, I got this question wrong, where did I go wrong with it? That's how you make a mock beneficial. So solve a lot of mocks, solve a lot of questions your paper, previous year papers, and be very thorough with your basics. Just keep one thing in your mind, that you do not need to know a lot of things. You just need to know the most important thing very nicely, so that if the question comes up, you don't spend a lot of time thinking of it. Because 60 to 70% of the paper is that basic part only. The other 20 to 30% is what varies. So even if you are very much thorough with your 60 to 70% of the paper, you're good to go. You're
Hmm.
honestly good to go. Because that gives you a boost that, okay, I can solve this much.
Hmm.
And after that, solve a lot of questions, be very thorough with the basics. And I would suggest that, see, you have to understand that it's a journey. So even if it's just a 3 month journey or a 2 month journey, be dedicated to it. This year, I guess it was a little difficult for us because the exam got so delayed. But I hopefully from next year that does not happen, hopefully. So if it does not, be dedicated to your preparation. And you do not need to spend a lot of time on it. It's not like you need to study 12 hours a day. No, even if you just dedicate 2 hours per day, if you're starting even from next year, like in January or Feb, you're good to go. And be true to yourself, know what are your strengths and weaknesses, and then just work on them accordingly. You know yourself much better than anyone else, so stick to that.
All right. Since we are short of time, I would not really sum it up because Devashi had such great points that they can't really be summed up in 1 minute. But yes, Devashi, thanks a lot for sharing what you just did. I think it's going to help a lot of aspirants. And you heard her story. I'm sure it is very inspiring for everyone. And let's see how it goes in 2023. All the very best.